actually start the session. And what I'll do at the end of the hour, when Clint finishes, I'll go ahead and shut down, but then come back for our second hour. Clint, this is a 1 day a week class. We meet only on Tuesday nights, and it's supposed to go from about 7 o'clock to, I don't know, midnight, I think. Midnight, right, guys? Some crazy hour. But basically attention spans and everything else, we go 7 to 9. And the last hour, we cover what I cover with my other 2 classes that you had a chance to visit with. We meet on Thursdays for about an hour each. And so that's what we'll do tonight with our class here. So that's the scoop. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As I do whenever we start, I ask if you have any questions about anything going on at this moment that you want to raise, and away we go. So anybody want to jump in with anything that is of interest and or concern for you at this moment? If you want to wait till the second hour when we actually have our class together and one-on-one, that'd be fine. I understand that. So, okay.
Professor, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Henry?
Yes. For these Sandbox speakers, we're supposed to write a 1-page summary for each of them, right?
Yeah, exactly right. How'd you figure that one out?
Yeah, I saw it, but I was just making sure. Yeah, it's for each one. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. In each class, each time we have a guest, I ask you to share your thoughts about that guest. I put some questions, and I also gave you a template to use. And as with all assignments, when are they due in this class?
Sunday midnight.
Sunday at midnight. There you go. I'll try and keep it simple, because I did get an email or two from some of the students saying, well, it's confusing because other classes. And you know, that got me thinking. I guess I thought that this was the only class that you guys were taking. You know, I just figured this was it. And, hi, Alani.
No.
That's all right. Let me mute. I'll mute her mic there, because I know she's not answering my question. She's doing something else. So a pardon that I forgot that you might have other classes, and heaven forbid that those other classes have assignments and work that you have to do as well. I just figured this was it, you know, because I don't know, just figured it was. So I'll keep it simple. Sunday night, no quizzes, exams, or finals. Free textbook. Everything is pretty straightforward. And I do not penalize you. There is no penalty whatsoever for what? Guys, remember?
Late work.
No, not late work.
Nice work.
Going ahead and getting work done early. I don't penalize you for doing early, but if you are late, you will be penalized. And because that's not fair for everybody else that does turn it in on time. So, all right, tonight we have a really special guest. He's a good friend of mine, Clint. I've actually used some of his work that he's authored in my classes, and he and I have a lot in common. And he actually came and taught one of my classes when I very first met him, because I have anybody that walks into my classroom is not a spectator. You're a participant. Doesn't matter what your role is, you're going to participate somehow if you're in my class. So Clint got a chance to show his chops in teaching, and he'll I'm sure you'll learn a lot tonight from some of the materials he's going to be presenting. I have one quick poll, and then we'll launch into Clint's area, because we're talking about work, and the idea is, why do we work? You know what? Everybody has kind of different motivations. Some financial, right? Obviously, pay our bills, eat, and raise our families, and other things. But other people, you know, like there's motivations to because I want to achieve, or I enjoy doing this, or this is I feel a calling for me, or whatever. So it's not always just the financial side of it. But I always ask my students in my class why you're here, and that's not being challenging. That's not being negative. I'm just asking you, why are you taking this time out of your life, investing it in coming to these classes and participating in a higher educational institution like Cal State Dominguez, when you could be doing other things, right? We all have choices in our lives, and we could be working, we could be traveling, we could be doing a lot of different things. Why are you here? And I'm going to throw out a poll here because I'm just curious what you guys think. And this has a poll, and it has to do with coming to college and on the financial side. So let me see how you come up with what I'm asking you. How much more do you earn in a lifetime with a college degree than without one? What do you guys think? This is a lifetime now, not weekly, not hourly, not annually, but in your lifetime of working. What do you think? And obviously, answer 4 could be interpreted a lot of different ways, but I'll let you guys decide if that's your right answer. So, okay, so we've got 28, 38. Keep going. I need about 5 more. Come on. Answer it. Is Caesar what? Okay, gonna close it down here. We're getting close enough to everybody, so I'm gonna end the polling, and let's kind of see how we came out. Now this is interesting because I've run this same poll in the last 2 classes, same junior senior population, business, entrepreneurship, and answers were quite a bit different. So here's the results. So if you Google it, which obviously that's the quickest and easiest thing to do right off the bat, just ask, how much more do I earn by going to college than not? Maybe just getting a high school education, or maybe even junior college, maybe associate's degree. And most of you guessed, the highest percentage guessed $1 million. Actually, in the other 2 classes, it was 100K, which kind of surprised me. If you look at it, there's a big range because it depends on careers, it depends on occupation, it depends on what you do with your life after college, and so comparing. But basically, it looks like about $1 million plus seems to be a consensus that you are going to earn for that 4 to 5 years, whatever you spend getting your college degree, in return in earning income potential. And I mean, there's some surveys that are up over a couple $1 million. Some surveys are about $1 million and so forth. So I don't know if that surprises anybody, but good for you for feeling that way. But the reality is that there's a good reason. But you've got to choose wisely. And that's where we're going to go and talk to our expert who's with us tonight, Mr. Clint Day. And I'm going to turn this over. Clint, I've got to get you having co-host so that you can share. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right this minute. Here we go. Okay, you now are a co-host, and the floor is yours. Welcome, Clint Day, please, to our classroom.
Thank you. I just got to share here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I just hit the wrong.
I mean,
thing.
sir.
Can I share again?
Go for it.
That's not uncommon that I hit the wrong thing, okay? I just don't want to do it too often. Okay, you can see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. First of all, before I get started, whatever I can answer after I'm done, I'd like to help you. That's my lot my hobby, my mission in life. So in the chat, I put down my email, teaching email, and I put down my URL address for the blog I run, which is called Current and in Entrepreneurship. 2 or 3 new articles a week and stuff that would help an entrepreneurial small business or a student in the field. So you have a look at it and see if it doesn't help you. Okay, now this is a pleasure, and I hope I impart. I don't mean to scare you tonight because there's a lot of impactful information about the future of work. But remember this, you guys are entrepreneurship students and therefore have a leg up, and you're really learning skills that will help you become a successful career in life, in business. I want to show you this real quick. When I met Mike, I had no idea he had a background like me. But not only was he an entrepreneur, which I was 30 years in insurance agencies, he also is a Vietnam veteran. And back in the day, we didn't have a volunteer army. We had a obligated army. And those of us who were the right age went over and had a look at Southeast Asia. So among the brotherhood, we meet another fellow Vietnam vet, even though you may not even know him, you say, welcome home. And I say that tonight to Mr. Crimshaw.
And I'll say it right back at you, buddy.
So this is the situation. We're facing the end of work as we knew it. And I'm not exaggerating, as you'll soon see. I mean, traditional work and going to work for a corporation, having one job for your lifetime, that's gone. Right now, they say the average person works for 8 companies during his career or her career. But even that's changing, as you'll see. This is I really don't want to start that, so let me just go back. I don't have time to play all my videos, but I want you to really study this thing. This is a modern day automobile assembly plant, and they've got 3 different stations in front of you where you see 3 different partial cars. Each one has 4 robots. So, I mean, they can crank out a whole lot in just a small amount of time, and that's what the world looked like 15 years ago. This is robotic engineering replacing manufacturing or running manufacturing. That's changed, and we now have what's called, by me, the perfect storm. The first, we have artificial intelligence by robots. Now, those robots were programmed by software, but we now have more artificial intelligence running robots, as you'll see. Then we have the gig economy, about 15 years old, where these large corporations like GM and Exxon have learned they can save a bunch of money if they just hire independent contractors who do a lot of the work. And they don't have to pay benefits, retirement or any of that stuff, because that's up to the independent contractor who in effect is an entrepreneur. And last but not least, we have the thing that really made this a disastrous time, and that's the pandemic. I think you all know someone that's had trouble with a job or been hurt financially by the pandemic that's been going on since March. And it's universal, it's all across the world. And it's changing things rapidly at lots of places in different ways. So the fundamental change in work is that perfect storm, but automation by artificial intelligence is growing every week. And what this is the result of, down there in the bottom, you see big data. And big data is an expression they use for these huge conglomerates of information up in the cloud. Like Amazon Web Services has so many customers. They've got all kinds of categorized information and non-categorized. YouTube's got, just huge volumes of videos. Microsoft has a big web presence, and last but not least, you've got IBM and the Watson phenomenon, which one guy who had won the most of any contestant named Ken Jennings, he was beaten by a machine called Watson. And that was because they were able to expose it to enough prior jeopardy and general knowledge that he could answer, Watson, the machine, could answer quick enough to compete with Ken Jennings. And so it's real scary. We are in the age of artificial intelligence. And the first people who lose their job are what Ted Dinkersmith, I'm going to introduce him to later, calls structured jobs. And those low-skilled jobs go first because they can be replaced the easiest by having repetitive kind of work replaced. And it used to be just blue collar, like the people operating that auto assembly plant, but now it's white. I'm going to tell you the story a little later about State Farm. If I forget it, please remind me. And then big data is constantly being screened by increased algorithms that can find patterns. You know, you just find patterns and you realize you can write some repetitive program that will enable that to be thinking. Whenever you call a big company like Comcast Cable to get customer service, you end up talking to a machine. That's called machine learning. And they have a certain program of questions they're ready to answer. And if you go outside the box, you sort of get off track, and people as dumb as me end up screaming at a box, you know, why can't you? And I've only learned to do this, say representative 10 times, and they finally give you a human being. So the big shift is the digitization of the economy and everything that came with the internet and writing programs. Then we have this pandemic, and it's very true that it's affected the economy in a huge way. And it says here, the pandemic economy, humans are being left behind. But I have a program I don't have time to show you, but a spot was on CBS Sunday morning about a family of African American, about 5 people, 3 of them children and mom and dad, and the oldest child and mom and dad all worked, and all 3 of them lost their job to the pandemic. They were in things that closed down, small businesses, and it's just a huge impact on their life. And they're used to a certain income, and it's all gone, other than, you know, unemployment insurance and whatever the federal government does to try and hold us up. One group of economists estimates 42%, almost half, of the jobs lost to the pandemic are gone forever. And my sources, I think, are pretty good. I use McKinsey, the worldwide research organization that big corporations fund, and I use Oxford University in Great Britain for some of this research. So here's more of what they said. During the pandemic, 72% of small businesses say their effects are permanent. That's kind of scary. Some of them are out of business. 62% said the demand for what they produce or their product of a service is way, way down from what they're used to. And 12 million in the US have lost their jobs. That's 7.2% of the workforce, which is higher than unemployment, but, you know, growing. And I'm worried about the end of the CARE Act in September. If it's not renewed, you know, there's some pounding the heads and difference between the 2 parties in the Congress, but I'm hoping they'll compromise on something that will start up next month. Because if they don't extend the social floor, there's an estimate that it will cost another 5 million jobs in the next year, 2021. So what's the cause of all this? You already know it's the internet and the digitization and algorithms that have been used to create apps and replace work. And what has happened is it used to be the blue collar, and now it's the white collar too. And that's going on more and more. I want to show you this one example for a couple minutes.
Saumba Chan works at a warehouse picking orders from miles of shelves. And this is his co-worker.
I'll call him Wally.
It's a robot powered by artificial intelligence. And he isn't alone. Doctors are beginning to rely on AI for diagnosing disease. Machines are taking the wheel from truck drivers, and chefs are handing their ladles to robotic line cooks.
It doesn't matter whether you're working in a factory or sitting at a desk or working in the service sector. If you're doing something that is fundamentally routine and predictable, that job is ultimately going to be threatened by machine learning.
Will work ever be the same, or are we heading towards a jobless future?
So in here, this is where we assemble the robots. Here's your future job as a robot builder.
Melanie Wise is the CEO of Fetch Robotics. Her team builds autonomous robots that use sensors, cameras, and mapping algorithms to navigate warehouses.
So instead of a picker walking several hundreds of miles over the course of a week, they would give the goods to the robot, and the robot does all that transportation.
Maybe save me about a couple hours in the day to make my job a little bit easier.
At RK Logistics, which supplies high-tech companies with semiconductor parts, Fetch robots have become part of the workforce.
It wasn't about trying to replace people. It was about trying to use the people that we have, employees that we have, for the tasks that they are good at and are interesting and that they want to be doing. We've not laid off one person because of robots. And in fact, because it's made us even more competitive, we've actually only been hiring.
Even so, mounting evidence suggests that the risk of robots replacing humans in the labor force is real. According to one study, about half our jobs are at high risk for automation. And it's not just manual labor.
It's also, white collar things. It's just jobs done by journalists and radiologists and all kinds of other, professional people that often have lots of education.
Historically, new technology has increased productivity and created new jobs, but this time could be different.
The machines are moving into that cognitive space. They're thinking, they're learning. They're adapting, they're doing things that used to be.
I'm going to stop it there. You've got the general feel, but I would like to correct something the RK logistics manager said. He's hiring, but they're in the technical field. I think they're the exception. The majority of the cases, they're letting people go because of the automation. Let me catch back up here. So here's a graph that shows manufacturing isolated from about 1975 through 2015. So you've got quite a span of time, 35, 40 years. And you can see the pattern. The blue graph shows the production manufacturing greatly improving and rising, whereas the red line shows the manufacturing jobs remaining even and then declining. And that's what automation has done to manufacturing. Whatever can be standardized or has repetitive patterns will be automated. It's just a question of the trends and the technology reaching that particular industry. And the white collar job I want to talk to you about is State Farm claims. I was in the insurance business, and State Farm Property and Casualty is the largest company in the United States in property and casualty. And they did more claims than anyone, but they of course have so much money and such a large volume that they were one of the first companies. They said finance and insurance were the first to do it, to replace white collar workers. And those were the people who did claims inside a building, not the people in the field who do the field adjusting, but that's about 40% of their claims force has been totally replaced now by artificial intelligence. They ask the right questions, they automate the forms and the people, and then they do as much as they can artificially before they turn you over to an adjuster in the field. But it's very scary when a company at large decreases its force just in one division, but that's a big division, 40%, almost 50. And since 2000, as you can see up here in the red line, the population of employed workers has trended down, not just in manufacturing, but in general, because they say peak human labor, all workers, occurred about 17 years ago. And this is the University of Oxford, one of my two main sources. I use them and the McKinsey and Company for my research. And they say 47%, almost 50, one half, are at risk of being automated in the next 20 years. So this is 2020, we're talking 2040, half the jobs being automated. Just staggering statistic, but it's true. You've got to believe the accuracy of this. And then the other research firm I use, McKinsey, they're talking global here. 3 to 14% of the global workforce will have to switch occupations in the next 10 years by 2030. So that's 75 to 375 million globally. And all of this faces downward pressure in the wages because work can be done cheaper and quicker by some of these replacements. What I put in bold type here is where the action is and what we have to help influence. That's policymakers and leaders have to address worker transition, education, and change. Mid-career job training doesn't even exist now to speak of, except what you order and do on your own. This has to become the standard for people who lose their job mid-career. And the challenges are to our educational and workforce training, which is woefully inadequate now. Now I want to get your input on what do you think is going to affect the change in work the most. So we got a little poll. I think I can, Mike can do that for me. Hello, Mike. There it is. In your opinion, what's the primary reason for joblessness in the future? AI, artificial intelligence, gig economy, COVID-19, lack of education. I'm telling you, this class is way too smart.
Hello, Clint?
Yes, sir.
Well, education? No, not lack of education. Lack of knowledge.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, this is excellent. This is the best response we've had all night. I would say you're an above average class here. The AI has been the number one answer, but lack of education hasn't even appeared before. You're so right. I mean, we have a real crisis in education. Okay, I'm going to go on. Thank you for those responses. The complication is exactly what you people are aware of with the last choice. Education is woefully underfunded and is not taken seriously enough, both in the system of education or in corporate training, the boardrooms, anywhere you look. It's failing in the job, with one exception, which I'll give in a moment. The investment is 1/10 of 1% on our gross domestic product for worker transition, almost non-existent. And workers are not getting retrained in an efficient way, the little it's done. So companies continue, while this condition exists, to do more work with fewer people. And I don't have time to show you the TED Talk, but if you have time yourself, look up a TED Talk on what school should be by Ted Tinnersmith. He wrote a book about what schools should be after traveling through all the states and visiting over 200 schools. Essentially, he said, you've got to reimagine education, change it for an innovative, creative world. Now, what does that more than entrepreneurship? That's why you guys are really on the right track right now. The exception to where community colleges are hitting the target is the only one, and I teach at 2 community colleges, and some of them are, doing things that are really creative. Like up in Appalachian, there's one school where the administrators of the college go out into the community and talk to the employers, and they ask them what skills do they need to have trained to hire people. And they're actually starting to shut down one way of teaching and starting to teach that trade, which has been very successful, but it's just scratching the surface of how that concept needs to be expanded. And Ted's conclusion out of writing the book and making a film called Most Likely to Succeed, which talks about purpose to prepare yourself for life, is he came down to the expression I'm using. Every structured job that hasn't disappeared will disappear in the future. Very scary. And here's what's happening to academic credentials. A couple of big tech employers, IBM and Apple, 4th line down, no longer require degrees for certain positions. They want experience, or they want some software certificates. Like you can get education from Microsoft, a bunch of certificates in software. Coursera, Udemy has all kinds of courses you can take. There's one in design thinking and lean startup, which is fantastic. The publishing companies that are advanced, like Pearson does education and Wiley does business school, they have started online courses and certificates. So traditional degrees eventually will be very skill oriented or swept aside. And you've probably heard of this online phenomenon known as MOOCs, MOOCs, massive open online courses. A lot of them are free, and you can learn great information. A guy in an earlier class got a software certificate through one of these for $9. I mean, that's hard to compete with. So the value of a college degree is still there because the big corporations still want that ticket punched, but not so much for a long-term career. Start thinking skill when you think in terms of job security. And I'll prove that to you with these surveys. These are jobs that can't find qualified people. Truck drivers, that will be a paradox when you see what's coming there. A lot of people in the healthcare industry, nurses, health administrators, a lot of people in the computer industry, software developers and computer analysts, web developers. But here's something that you've got to take note of. If you've got a skill at what is still being done in marketing, that is sales manager or marketing professional, where you can cause any tools that help you, but work and manage people who close sales, you're always going to have a job. That's one that's not going to be taken over by automation because it can't be. But the pattern at the bottom, skills and experience, keep a lifelong in the employment. So now I want to give you a chance to talk a little. First thing to do is one of you, I know this class has got at least one student who's taken a certificate course or a MOOC online. Would you share that experience in a couple of minutes with us? Just feel free to speak up, mute yourself and don't be afraid, because there are no bad offerings. Yvette, you came up. Travis.
Hello.
Saul.
I just reached a certification in becoming a mortgage broker.
Really?
To do that. So that's like sales. So I mean, hopefully that won't be, taken over by the robots or whatever. But it's in sales, so I mean, there's that.
Who taught
So
it?
I started. No, it wasn't like a MOOC like class, like a certification
in person
or a license. Sorry, I had a license.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's a skill. I mean, when you take a license course to be an agent in real estate or insurance or something, you're learning the trade in a real crash manner, and they want you to know those basics to get a license. Well, thanks for volunteering. And here's one that I want you to break out into groups and tackle. We've had some interesting responses earlier tonight. What would your breakout group do to reverse this jobless direction? Use your imagination and what you've learned in the businesses courses to give us some ideas. And Mike will break us out into groups here.
You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. We've got about 3 to 4 people in a breakout room, and the question is, what would you do to reverse the jobless direction that's happening right now? Okay.
Use your imagination.
Yeah, be creative, and we'll pop in and out of the rooms and kind of see how everybody's doing. Here we go.
Thank you.
Do you know what's going on?
No, it kicked me out. Something happened in my Zoom.
Okay, because we were in there for like a couple more minutes after you left.
Uh-huh.
And then so I left, and then I was going to rejoin the Zoom because that's what I had to do for last week. But then now we're here.
Are we in a room? What is this? Wait to be assigned.
No, we're in the
main.
We're in the main thing. But I think everyone else is still in the breakout rooms.
Oh. Okay, look, oh, there's Daisy coming back.
Yeah, because it says, okay, there's everyone else.
Okay, cool. Bye.
All right, guys.
Gosh.
Hello.
All right, looks like people are still off in the cloud there, but for the most part, everybody came back. So let's go around the room real quick, if you don't mind, Clint, and
Absolutely.
Let's share some thoughts. And I'm going to just go down through the breakout room. And Perla, I haven't heard from you recently. What did you guys decide? What's the winning idea in your breakout room? Perla, are you there? Perla Calderon. No microphone. Okay, Ramondo. That couldn't have been a good conversation. Ramondo, what did you guys come up with?
We talked about being entrepreneurs and utilizing e-commerce, the internet.
That's already happening.
Right, and I mean that would be in a personal level or like a small scale. But we only got to that point, e-commerce and entrepreneurship.
All right, let me go on to breakout room 2. Let's see what the winning idea there was. Chromebook 87A. That's your title today. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, you're listed as Chromebook. You know that you can actually go in and rename yourself, right? Put your name. Yeah.
All right, I'll try to do that. Sorry about that. But to answer the question, we agree. We pretty much all agree that there's nothing to stop this whole job thing that's happening. We also agreed on that the fact that companies after this pandemic need to understand that they need to be more flexible with the way they operate. Like we don't need that 8 to 5 sitting at a desk type of thing anymore.
Introduce yourself too. So.
Oh, Santiago.
Santiago, last name?
Cardenas.
Santiago Calderas. Okay, because don't forget, I take roll as well, so I want to make sure that you get credit. Are you in this class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thought he was.
All right, let me move on. Good to see you. Jose Daniel, Vidro, what did you guys come up with in breakout room 3?
So what we came up with was figuring out some sort of like training system where we are able to work there first or kind of have or build up that credibility of experience, because a lot of jobs it's you need to have this amount of experience in order to work for us, but it's like, how can we get it if we're not getting hired? So I think something that's kind of similar to like internships, some sort of program like that.
Some kind of internships, okay. Do we do a good job at our school or not? Getting internships for people. I heard some people say they're having a hard time.
I feel like we did good. I've been to a couple job fairs.
Okay, we do have an internship coordinator. That person's job is to get you guys internships in CBAP. All right, breakout room 4, Francisco Alvarez. Did you chase everybody away because you're the only one that's there?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened to everybody?
I don't know. They just started falling out little by little. But we were talking about like automation. Like I think it was Miguel. He made a good point. Like companies just need to train their people, to keep up with the times. That's basically what we spoke about.
Train the people. Companies don't take time for training. So, okay, good idea. Breakout room 5, Sylvia Garcia, what do you guys come up with?
I said get people more education, but ones that like don't cost that much, so people can get more education to get like a better job or something that machines can't do.
Okay. All right. Get educated. Oscar Morales in breakout room 6. What did you guys come up with?
Well, we came up with kind of what like Amazon's doing already for some of the storefronts that aren't open. Like, for example, physical, like less physical touching of anything. Like instead of giving your debit card or cash to the cashier, you go to these storefronts, scan it, and then it's already paid through an app and easily, you're not going to be losing so much out of those storefronts that, like small businesses, for example, those are the ones that are losing that business right now. Yeah.
Got it. That's good. Cesar Vera in breakout room 8. Cesar, are you still with us?
You. I reached group, and then I spoke at the last. Also, I was reconnecting. I'd like to call on a group member to explain the group.
Okay. Lee Smithy?
Yes, sir. We basically agreed that since it's inevitable for AI to take over, to have a balance with humans and AI working together. AI doing the heavy lifting, things that aren't possible for maybe humans, or is more effective for the AI to do, but not to completely take over the jobs of the human people.
Wow. That's going to be a strange world when that happens. Okay, last breakout room. Henry Menjivar, what did you come up with?
Yes, sir. We talked about politics, maybe getting involved in the, like regulating the robotics or IA to actually just aid or assist like certain jobs. Travis also talked about making education cheaper.
Okay.
That's a problem that we have now, that it's too expensive. I guess people are not being, they don't have the money to be educated. That's the reason why this is happening.
So who would pay
being
for it?
that
Government pay for it, huh? Yeah.
well, that if it's cheaper, some people will actually have the resources to pay for it.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you kind of need the government to aid you. Yeah.
Well, we do. And I'll tell you what, it's getting harder and harder because we're a public institution. And as you know, we've gone from a surplus to a deficit in the state of California. So with this whole pandemic. So, all right. Well, Clint, that's kind of a roundup of what everybody learned. Where do you want to go from here?
Oh, I want to expose them to Jack Wow.
Yeah, let's go, Jack Ma.
One thing I got out of my breakout room, I'll share.
Sure.
Ian, are you still there? He made me aware of craftsmanship. In other words, if you had a craft skill, I told him the story of a veteran I taught who was great at welding, and he wanted to do things in art, but to make a living, he started welding metal and got a business going in producing home bars. That thing you see on 4 wheels, and kind of secured his own future.
Okay.
Hang on a sec here. So the future, this is a really good exposure. We'll be about 2 minutes with.
You think the machines will win?
This gentleman is the Jeff Bezos of China, who founded Alibaba, which is very similar to Amazon.com, and he says some very pertinent things about the future of work.
Because the day when we design a machine, we know machine is powerful, stronger than us. Next 30 years, it's going to be painful.
What does that mean?
So stop globalization. It's impossible. People are already unhappy because a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence killing a lot of jobs. Machine is good in knowledge, but human beings are good at the wisdom.
That doesn't sound good to me.
Artificial intelligence is going to be very smart. We think we're a big data company today. That was compared to yesterday. Compared to tomorrow, we are nothing. We think Data is going to be so important to human life in the future.
There's plenty of people who don't believe you, who think that eventually artificial intelligence will exceed our own and the machines will take over and we won't even know when that point is reached.
Machine can do things that human being cannot do. One of the best ways is to help in small business to sell their local products across the board. You can always make a machine to learn the knowledge, but it is difficult for machine to have a human heart.
All right. Well,
So there's more. He gets right in the meat of
I
it.
noted some quotes from you recently when it comes to the future of work. In the next 30 years, the world will see much more pain than happiness, is one thing that you said. And that was involving the idea of how work is going to change and how conceivably the social fabric will change. That doesn't sound good to me.
Well, every technology revolution will cause social instability. The first technology revolution, I said, caused World War I. Second technology revolution caused World War II. This is the third technology revolution. People are already unhappy because a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence killing a lot of jobs. People start to worry. The background, the education background, if you're not innovative enough, if you're not like a creative enough, your job will be taken away by a lot of machines. So this is the challenge. So the third technology revolution will may cause the third world war. What's the third world war? We should be the war if the human being do not have the same target, the one target, like poverty, disease, environment, human being gonna have big problems. So I think the good thing is that technology is gonna improve people's life.
Yeah, I gotta stop him there. Stimulating a guy who's right in the middle of the whole thing. Screen share, stop. Let me close. I'm sorry. I'm still sharing my screen. Do you guys see it?
no.
Okay, let me just get back here. What we can expect in the future is the close here. You already know about autonomous self-driving vehicles. And let me show you on the next slide what's going to happen in the trucks, right instantly. E-commerce, the Amazon way of life is what everybody has to do to compete. And AI will talk to you now through things like customer service. It'll assemble furniture, like IKEA furniture can be assembled by intelligence and autonomous vehicle coming up. 60% of global occupations have activities that this one study says will be automated. And you're going to have this competition between income distribution becoming more less equal and mass unemployment. So we're basically screwed, pardon my French, unless we do something and do it now. And here's the Council for Foreign Relations who say solutions are equip young people with skills to adapt to career changes during their time, provide retraining for older people, and a civilian national service program. That's something like basic income, which we'll mention in a moment. But basically, you've got to get in front of, you got to get behind, not in front of the education. It's something that has to start yesterday. And I prefer educating everyone, mandatory entrepreneurship, because it teaches you how to think entrepreneurial and be creative and innovative and develop the skills that will keep you safe. So retraining and upskilling, another word for it, is the urgent priority. And a survival skill is entrepreneurship. That's why you folks are ahead of the curve. And the only reason I show you another chart on the jobs that are being unfilled because of a lack of skill is I want to check off this other study. Those 5 out of the 10 with a check mark are mirroring 5 categories on the prior one. So these are real needs: nurse practitioner and healthcare, software developer, and information security analyst. And we got truck driver there. We got to go into that right now. 3.5 million truck drivers in the United States, and the demand for them is growing faster than you can hire them and replace them. So what does that mean? If you've already got a truck that can be automated on the long haul from coast to coast, not so much local and LTL, less than truckload, but the coast to coast, it can be done now. And there's one company which is the largest in the field making these trucks. They're being manufactured to drive without a driver, called TU Simple, Too Simple. If you Google it, .com is really a big company already with orders from people like the major trucking companies and big transport companies. So this is coming, and they say the licensing should exist in 2021. We're only a year away from seeing autonomous trucks on the road. And here are people who are making $41,000 a year on average. They're going to lose their job. So wouldn't it be nice if they had a hobby, a passion, or some prior experience that they could turn into a small business through entrepreneurship? That's why it's a survival skill. Now, some people, you remember Andrew Yang ran for president in the Democratic ticket, talk about basic income. He wanted everyone to have a freedom dividend or a minimum, so much per month. 1,800 a year or whatever. But the projects that they've done on this, none of them have worked in the US. One reason being that we've got the left-right coalition. It's very difficult to get the conservatives together with the liberals and actually get anything done now. In the old days, they did. But it'd be very difficult to pass it here where we would spend the equivalent of 30% of our gross domestic product, where that money could be used so much more efficiently in other social programs. And the Americans probably wouldn't put up with the taxation required to support it. So while basic income has worked, like in a couple of Scandinavian countries, I don't believe it will work here. So we do have education and we do have entrepreneurship. And I just think it's critical that the people realize they need to have a skill in their training, not so much a college degree as a skill. So let me ask you, can entrepreneurship be taught and learned? And I don't have time to prove it to you, but Mike can give you a glimpse of a thing called Lean Startup, which came out of Silicon Valley above you about 2008 to 2012. And they've proven that you can teach entrepreneurship through their system of validation and going to the end user who will pay for the object and letting them say go or no go, and actually help you design it to make it more successful. So there is a form of entrepreneurship planning that can be taught as long as the student has desire, wants to learn it, and that's the key. So I hope I've entertained you and haven't scared you out of your wits, but let's take some questions now, and there are no dumb questions.
Thank you.
Come on now, don't be shy. Where are you, Ian? Where are you when I need you?
So you think, okay, so the automated trucks, but the first few times they're kind of have to have a driver in them, right?
Well, they do now, yeah. All the experiments have a driver sitting there, but he does nothing.
True. Sometimes.
They have glitches, like they had the Tesla on autopilot in Phoenix a year ago and ran over a lady on a bike. She was nighttime crossing the street and the gear didn't pick her up. And I think she was killed, seriously injured.
And then, so it'll take some time, I guess, to get them fully like zero driver. I don't think that'll be zero driver because like, what about reroutes? And then like zero driver means they would have to be level 4 autonomous and they would have to connect to internet points at some point and then get offline. And then in case of emergencies, it doesn't really have, unless it's radio control, but I don't know. But it's good because like you mentioned, the truck driving business is in high demand and it's a large workforce. It's practically a whole army.
Yeah, it is a whole army. Well, the incentive is always economic, and they don't have enough drivers now, and they would save so much money. And the one that will be the safest is point to point. If you're going from, I had a truck line I insured, and they went from Atlanta, Georgia to Los Angeles, California. That's all they did.
And in droves, because then you could drive them in 3 lanes and keep it absolutely safe, because there are issues with Tesla where if the vehicle is parked horizontally, the vehicle won't detect it because I don't know why. But if you use 2 trucks simultaneously side by side, they scan 2 lanes or 3 lanes, and then that way, like there's absolutely like less chance of.
Hello,
like,
Clinton. Even if there is glitches now, I mean, they're gonna fix them eventually, So I mean, there's glitches now. A year, 2, 3, 5 years from now, they're gonna fix the glitches. Like that's not an impossible thing.
No
So I
question.
mean, if it's now or 5 years from now, it's gonna be fixed. Like that's not like a something that we can't
Yeah,
overcome.
I agree.
I saw a guy today deliver for Amazon out front, and he said, you know, my ambition. I said, do you run this truck for Amazon as an independent? He said, no, I work for my boss who does do a couple of trucks for independent. And he said, but my ambition is to become a long haul trucker. And I told him, well, let me tell you what you need to do. You need to go out to, I think it's in Missouri, and try and get on with two simple automated truck line because they're going to grow by leaps and bounds, and you could be on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Clint,
Hey,
I do have a
excuse me. I
question.
had a
Oh,
question. Sorry.
go ahead.
Oh,
No,
jump in.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Ladies
Okay.
first.
How you know how you say the perfect storm? There's the rise of the gig economy with the independent contractor. What comments do you have with this whole AB5 bill being introduced into California and them trying to get rid of the whole independent contractor?
Well, you know, I'm far away, but I understand basically they're trying to force the people who work for like Lyft and Uber to have to, you know, pay some of the unemployment insurance and other things. I think they're going to really hurt the gig workers. I think, but California has been on the leading edge of everything. But it's like they finally taxed sales on the internet. Something's going to come from it, but you would know more living out there.
Well, I work for a transportation company, and our drivers are being hit with that, and we're losing a lot of truck drivers right now.
Yeah, they
as we
don't want
speak.
to. Yeah, they're probably trying to make their future more secure, right?
Well, because the law is make it's either you make them employees or they really become their own, per se, like their own company with their own permits, own authority. Some guys don't have the money to do that, and others don't want to lose that freedom
A lot
of,
of trucking, a lot of trucking's interstate, so they could probably go over to Arizona and pick up right where they left it.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what happened to my brother-in-law's dad. He actually moved to Arizona as soon as that bill came out for that exact reason. Started up his own company, like she was talking about per se. Got his own permits and continued driving his truck, his rig out in Arizona.
Crazy. They're losing business and businesses because of their regulations. But that was my home state at one time. But you know what? You know what the people call me around here? Berserkly. Crazy berserkly. Those people from California, they're nuts. Not really. I am one.
Nah, everybody says that though. Everybody says that California, that people that we're crazy.
You're just on the leading edge of everything.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
If it's a fashion trend, it starts out there first.
Hippies for life.
The gig economy isn't that good, huh?
Well,
like the Lyft drivers and like the Postmates drivers.
Well, what is it? The California economy as a whole is like the seventh largest or the fifth largest in the world after countries. So you're still pretty big.
I think
We
those
could be our own country.
Yeah, it could be.
yeah, I think those
Let's do it. Let's vote on it.
Nah, how about
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just same question though you kind of had us discuss amongst ourselves. In your opinion, what is the best way or the best tactic that you would think to reverse the IA taking over all of the jobs?
Well, it's a combination of things, education and retraining. Entrepreneurship as mandatory, but it's got to happen right away. I mean, the whole movement is so massive and taking such a direction that they need some policymakers like governments, probably on the federal level, to get with it and pass some laws.
Right. So that was going to be my follow-up, because I don't think any changes, or even if small businesses started to do that, I think it would take a very long time in order for larger corporations or anybody else to make a change. It would have to come from higher up, right?
Well, surprisingly enough, big corporations are doing partnerships with education firms like Coursera to do training for their own people, because those particular corporations, they're a minority group, but they understand the value and importance of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I also, I have a question. This is Sarah speaking.
Please.
Okay. So my parents own a franchise, Wetzel's Pretzels, and they've owned it for 12 years. And recently, you know, with minimum wage going up to $15, I don't think that, you know, they're worried about that. They're like, man, this is a really big expense. And so I have noticed at like my local CVS that they started doing self-service, you know, the self-service kiosks.
Correct.
Same thing like Panera does that. Same thing like McDonald's is integrating that. But I've kind of told my parents, well, maybe they should do that too. Look into having the corporate office, look into having, you know, those self-service cashiers, because our big problem is that no matter how many hours is spent into training people, they, for some reason, can't like always upsell. Like they always forget to upsell. It's always like that push for sales, and that takes a certain type of person. So when you're a small business owner, what are you supposed to do when AI or like, you know, all these machinery or these systems that get rid of jobs help your business, but it hurts other people? So I feel like those are like tough. It's like a tough situation.
You can probably get somebody like the telephone company or the what do you call it, the pay machines, to come in and give you some low expense computerization, like it automatically asks you a question to upsell before you actually check out. Would you like fries with that burger or something like that? But I mean, you might ask them to just ask their paymaster company or their phone company if they have some ideas.
I think when it comes to upsell, it's easier for a person to actually do it than a machine. Because same thing with tips. You know, if a machine is asking you in the system, you want a tip, you're gonna put no. And for a person to ask you like, do you want to give a donation, or do you want to put a tip in there? It's actually, it makes you like, I don't know, as a human, it makes you want to just do it because they're asking you, a person's asking you, versus like a machine just asking you on a screen. That's what my opinion, I feel.
They could do some research on the web of those pay machines that are used at places like McDonald's, and maybe have one that they can pay over time that would actually allow part-time workers that may not be subject to the $15 wage. I don't know the law minimum.
I have a comment on that. I think Henry made a good point. I think Sarah made a really good point. And I think what people overlook with this whole automation thing is that we as consumers have a lot of power as well. Like, it's not just, oh, hey, we have this new technology, so we're going to implement it. And whether you like it or not, you're going to have to deal with it. We're going to fire all of our staff, and you guys are going to be dealing with robots all day. Me personally, I cannot stand when I call a place and I'm talking to a machine. It drives me absolutely up the wall. Like, I'm sitting there pressing 0 and pound constantly because they don't understand nuance. They don't understand. Like, Jack Ma made a good point. He said, you know, robots are smart. Humans have wisdom. You can't replace that in certain industries. I want to speak to a person that I can discuss nuance with, that I can bounce ideas off of. I don't want it's just some rigid robot that's like programmed to do one thing and to respond in one way and not give me any leeway or work with me. So if we just reject it and just say, no, we're not going to work with your stupid robot, we want people, then they're going to be forced to have people on stuff.
But monopolies like Comcast can get away with it because they don't have a competitor, at least in my part of the country.
Yeah, but that needs to change too, because like things like, like Spectrum and those companies are the worst when it comes to customer service because they know they have a monopoly. And, you know,
but I got to remember that Star and Zero
and pound. I just do it nonstop until it transfers me because I cannot stand it. It's like if I need a fee waived, I can't talk to a robot and then explain to the robot why I have a point as to why my fee should be waived. Not only that, the robot is probably just going to be programmed to just do one thing anyway. They're not going to have any, you know, freedom of thought or anything like that a human would to have a different perspective.
And we have a new definition of stupid, and that is yelling at a machine.
Yeah, I don't want
And I
to do
do
that.
that.
I don't want to do that.
Bad boy.
I think with Sarah's question about the whole upselling, I work in sales myself and I train people. I'm a sales manager, so I train them to upsell. You know, that's the thing. Every day you have to sell these small things aside from the product that the customer's already purchasing. But I constantly have to be reminding them. I spend the day watching footage because I have stores from different in different cities. So I spend hours watching footage, making sure that within each sale that they're pushing, and then you constantly have to be on them, reminding them that you know to do that. I think it's just something that someone needs to be on it like at all times, and actually like pushing your employees to do that, and it becomes a pattern afterwards, where like the employee just does it naturally. So I think it's more on the training aspect of it that needs to change. Maybe I understand you did say you no matter how much you train them, they'll never get it, but eventually they do, and it's a repetitive thing that I've seen in some stores, at least that I've tested myself.
Oh, thanks.
I have
Henry,
one
I was
more.
just gonna say that it may be a different scenario because with a Wetzel's Pretzels, I mean, it's not a career, it's a job, and we usually get young people. So I don't know if it's just a different maturity, you know, level sometimes. But in regards to when you have this self-service touchscreen kiosk, you know, even apps, food apps, I know Chipotle has said like the moment that they created their app that you can order from, their sales boosted in an insane percentage. So that's something with that we'll probably see in the future too, is more food places doing these touchscreen kiosk services where, you know, they have pictures that look appealing if people want to add a drink to their order or, you know, whatever else. So the upsell would be automatic every single time. Nobody would even have to be there to watch over or train because the system would already know how to do so.
So your parents are going to ask you to volunteer to be the trainer real soon.
I think
Can I say something?
an important thing is how fast do you transition. You don't want to like transition so fast that people lose jobs, but you recognize that, you know, being more automated is more efficient, you know, so it's that tricky, like, you know, we don't want people to lose jobs, but we want to be more efficient. So it's kind of like, how do you transition?
That's a great point. And one of the things that the policymakers and government has to do is slow down the rate of the transition.
Yeah,
So
when
that-
you were talking in your lecture, you said that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's needed now. There's got to be some, I don't know, jolt, and the pandemic might be it to change the way that this is going, both speed and direction.
Do you think entrepreneurship should be introduced earlier on in the education system? Like I know in our breakout room, we talked about how high school counselors, you know, we talked about the path of if you don't have the GPA for a 4-year, go the community college route, get the degree, job, you know. Do you think entrepreneurship should be introduced as well as, you know, a trade or a skill path instead?
Yeah, there's an organization in Metro Atlanta that goes down into the K-12 to the kindergarten level, and they play games that teach independent thinking and creative solutions. And you're never too young to learn the way of thinking entrepreneurial, which is primarily creatively, you know, being able to recognize and act on an opportunity. And also not being risk averse, being willing to take the plunge. Now, lean startup, when you learn that later on, gives you a lot of security because you experiment and test at no expense before you scale. So that sort of numbs the risk a wee bit. Any other questions or contributions?
I wanted to say something about Sarah's point about the upsell.
Right.
Why not incentivize the upsell? I mean, you have this kid who you're paying probably between $12 to, I don't know, $15 an hour. I'm sure they're just clocking in and clocking out. What if you incentivize somehow for them to have a benefit of selling more for you?
You, sir, are an entrepreneur.
That's perfect. Yes. For our business, we incentivize for each, we sell hair products. For each shampoo that they sell, each employee gets a 2% commission from that sale. And it works. It works. Yeah.
That was a great observation. I think we got some real entrepreneurs in this class.
I think we do. I think we do. This has been fun. Get everybody kind of loosened up a little bit with what their lives are about. Because it, you know, when you talk about the big picture, it really has to be something that you can relate to in your life and use and walk away with. So thanks, guys, for sharing.
Yes.
That was very, very cool. So I thought a lot of comments, but everybody was jumping in, so that was great. Hopefully, you guys. Yeah, good for you guys for taking it on. And I don't know, you're hanging in pretty good, Clint. So you know, this is our hour 4 going in here. So for you, and
I just want to make sure they all realize that they're a step ahead at taking entrepreneurship, because that's a critical survival skill.
well, that's the goal of this semester, is to have the ability. We did improv last week, which helps you embrace surprise and feel more confident in yourself, and there's no failure. Today we talked about kind of what the future is, kind of scary and chaotic, and how to handle that and think about it. And then as we go through the semester, the various topics that we'll be covering through the Sandbox are going to help you get multi-dimensional. So from your thinking, I just want to say thanks to Clint for being so generous with his time, and certainly I learned a lot tonight as well. And it was fun to hear from my class what everybody's lives are about and what you're thinking about and what's important. So let's all give a big thumbs up to Clint. And yeah,
It was
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
I enjoyed the groups.
Thank you.
And I did put my contacts in the chat.
Yep.
And now that you've heard from me, you're welcome to follow up and ask me any question and let me help you.
Okay. Well, Clint, we're going to continue on with the rest of our class, if you will, that we handle on Tuesday night. And
I'll jump off, but thanks again, Mark.
Yeah, you're welcome to sit in or jump off. I know it's probably dark. It's probably dark.
11:20 out here.
So what time? Let's see. It's like 11:15 now. Your time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think I'm going to jump off, but thank you very much. I enjoyed your students a lot.
Yeah, good. We'll head down to Miami area there because the parties are just starting down there. Life
capital of Bossa Nova.
Yeah, that's right. You get the Latino going down there. You get that Latin time. So, and continue on. All right. So, guys, we'll continue on. I'm going to stop recording, and let's jump into to our class. Do you guys want to take a break?